All right, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Actionz Entertainment. We're going to call this segment of the channel Actionz Sports Network. Workshop to be, no, I like that name, but ASN. And we are here with former MLB pitcher, player, and current in this year's World Baseball Classic of 2026 for Team Italy, Adam Ottavino. Thank you so much for joining the channel. And this is the first ever Actionz interview, so to say, or sports interview. You've been kind of been getting ready to go in this alleyway, so I sincerely appreciate you and this opportunity. And yeah, welcome. So, how do you feel? That's one. How's your morning and whatnot?
It's good. Drop the kids off at school, getting into this Thursday. Got a little throwing scheduled for after this, but thanks for having me. Feeling
Of
good.
course. All right. Well, we are gonna just dive right into it because, of course, busy man. Of course, he's throwing later today, and for the first time, I'll be rooting for Team Italy. Italy. Don't tell anybody that. uh, but all right. So one thing I'm very clear. I wanted to lead off with this because I've correct me if I'm wrong, have had a few opportunities in your post career to transition into different alleyways, maybe in for some teams in a staff position. And I'm curious as to why you went down media first, because you have done a few things last year with the MLB Network, I think SNY, a few other programs and whatnot, and this year with the Yes Network and such. So you could have gone down the alleyway of maybe satisfying your competitive edge and whatnot, or going back right into the mix in a different alleyway. Why did you decide media instead of broadcasting? Because it's a very I wouldn't say a kickback mode, but it's different than being in the war room, so to say.
Yeah, it's just, for me, I've been in the grind for 20 years in pro ball, so my years were scheduled out. There was no real compromise there. I've never had a summer. I have three kids. I got a lot going on at home. No matter what, I needed to not be back in the circus this year, unless it was something that I couldn't say no to, an offer I couldn't refuse, right? And none of those came. I mean, there was all flattering offers. Of course, I'd love to be back in the fight, and I will be someday. But for now, this is something I've worked towards for a long time, been planting seeds for a long time, been going on shows in the off seasons, going back 6, 7, 8 years now, trying to get more reps, get a little more comfortable. Obviously, launching the YouTube show, was all part of that as well, part of the plan, just get more reps, and kick this media thing around and see where it goes. Ultimately, hopefully, it creates leverage for myself so that in the future, if an opportunity comes, I have something to compare it to. I can say, well, my life is this way doing the media stuff, so you're going to have to beat that if you want to drag me away from doing that. So ultimately, just trying to set myself up for success in the long term and having a good time doing it in the short term.
Now, one thing that I've noticed in this, and I'm not trying to, gas you up, but it's just something that I've noticed because I've gone back and watched some old games and some nuts in my spare time, and I saw Joe Girardi on some like an old Yankees and Giants broadcast, and I'm like, huh, this is in 2007. The broadcast was, and of course he wins a championship 2 years later. So then you're not just saying anything, that is just a very who knows and such. You seeing yourself. This is May 29th, 2010. 16 years ago, nearly so. Senior on this mound in Chicago. Um, what can you definitively say is different about your approach from then at this point in 2010? Or even again, just coming up in that point in the minors. From then on to now again today, as you get ready to go throw for I know the WBC in a couple weeks.
Well, this was an interesting time in my career. I really struggled a lot in the minor leagues. I was a first round pick, but I was headed towards bust territory in my double A year. I had a little bit of a shoulder issue I was dealing with. The Cardinals, which were the parent team that drafted me, tried to change a lot of the stuff I had naturally done in my pitching mechanics. So the version you see of me there in 2010 is kind of as good as I could become doing it their way, kind of stepping more linear, straight to the plate. I also was very skinny.
You're also
I lost.
starting.
I was also starting. Lost a lot of weight there, and I really wasn't the same pitcher. That year, I was able to make it work a little bit. I threw a lot of strikes, and I had velocity. I had things working in my favor, but at the same time, I wasn't really intimidating. I wasn't really quite the pitcher I wanted to be, the pitcher that was who I had in my own mind's eye. So things changed a lot from that point forward. I really didn't stick as a starter much longer. That was only one of three career starts right there. And then next thing you know, I'm on the Rockies a year and a half later. I'm in the bullpen. I'm back throwing my crossbody style, and my slider became more of a thing. And then that's where I started to find myself again as a baseball player. But that was a funny thing, being in the big leagues but feeling like you weren't yourself
That's
was
it.
was an interesting moment. Like it was, I fulfilled my dream in that moment, but being out there on that mound and having my shoulder be in pain and also not having my pitches react the way that I was accustomed to having them, move and such stuff like that was just surreal. It was a weird experience, but at the same time, it was still really cool. I shared a field with Albert Pujols. Tony La Russa was my manager.
I saw that
Uh,
list. I'm like, wow, that
Pretty cool.
like.
Yeah.
And I was gonna ask this a bit later, but I guess this perfectly transitions. This is a perfect transition for that question, which was, do 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 do. Have you ever had any hard strong ships or disagreements with any coach or staff member? And if so, how did you work through those problems?
Certainly, yeah. I mean, hard conversations are part of the gig, especially in competitive environments where a lot's on the line. I've disagreed with coaches all along the way. At times, I haven't always handled it perfectly. Sometimes the emotions get the best of you. But thinking back to my Cardinals days, the way that they developed me and where how they saw me as a player was in a stark contrast to the way I saw myself. So we always butted heads the entire time I was with that organization. With the Rockies, for the most part, it was good. But I can think of like even in 2017 when I started to scuffle, having some disagreements about how I was going about it with our manager Buddy Black at the time. Him asking me if I would go to the minor leagues, and me pretty defiantly telling him no. So sometimes you got to stand your ground. That didn't work out great for me. I got left off the postseason roster that year in very disappointing
So that was
fashion.
the 2017 year because I was doing some little like looking like he to gap in the pitching of the
Yeah,
playoffs and whatnot. So that's okay.
yeah, I sucked that year, flat out. My mechanics were off. I couldn't throw strikes. I'm still nasty. Like it wasn't as bad as, especially down the stretch. I had rectified some things, but the damage had been done. My manager had lost confidence in me. I didn't appreciate his approach. He didn't like my lack of consistency. So both sides were right in a way, but yeah, sometimes emotions get the best of you and hard conversations have to be had. And that was just one example right there. I mean, I've had more since then. And as I got older, yeah, you try to be more mature about it as best as you can and stand up for what you think is right, but also try to also, take constructive criticism as well, because, as much as we think we know it all, we definitely don't. And, all that's part of growing up. So I think I learned to handle these things better as I got older, but certainly it's been bumpy along the way, no doubt.
Right. And so just to, kind of I guess extend the Rocky stuff because trust me, there's a few there's a Rocky fan I know, it's a significant one. Again, I think I told you she's had you her top like five Rockies pitchers all time, like top three. So again, it's just kind of extend. Um, what in 2017 might have been sporadic or what or not for you. I don't know if that's the word to describe it. That's the word that
Yeah,
came to mind.
sure.
What was it at that point, and then what I guess changed and then clicked in 2018 that got you onto that playoff roster?
Yeah, 2017 is the worst year of my career, but also the most important year of my career because it set me up for success after that. So I had Tommy John 2015. I missed most of that season. Came back in 2016 in July and actually pitched really, really well when I came back from Tommy John. But if you watch me on video, you can see that my delivery got a little out of control. My crossbody action got a little too extreme, and I don't think I had my guard up yet. Things had been going well. I was a little mentally fried from the Tommy John rehab. So going into that offseason, going into 2017, I kind of, you know, wasn't paying attention enough to some possible pitfalls that I was running into, right? I just expected to show up to spring training and have my ability be there. But by the time I showed up to spring training that year, that delivery had not been fixed. In fact, it had gotten worse. So my consistency wasn't there. On top of that, we had a new manager that I was trying to impress instead of trying to be myself. On top of that, Um, they had just signed a closer, Greg Holland, to the team, who I thought the closing role was my role. So there was a lot of things that were kind of bouncing around in my head that don't really belong in a competitor's head. When you're in the moment, you need to keep things simple, as best as possible and take it one pitch at a time. And I wasn't doing that. So I struggled really badly. I threw a lot of balls. The opponents stood there a lot. They exposed me. And it was a really tough time. It was a horrible time. Just ask my wife about it. I wasn't the easiest person to deal with. But I would say about August of that year, when I started to own it, hey, this is a lost season and I need to be better next year. That's really the failure is what spurred me on to the success afterwards. I created the lab in Harlem. I started working out there in the
Saw
off
that.
season, had the best off season of my career going into 2018, fixed everything in one fell swoop, 4 months, fixed it all, came back a different beast that next year and had my career year in 2018. And that led me to the Yankees and beyond. So really, it sucked in the moment, 2017, but it was actually important.
It was a necessity.
Yeah, the failure was a necessity. It was a launching point from there.
So again, another one of these questions I was kind of gonna maybe ask later, but it works as a perfect segue right now. And with this question, I was wondering how to phrase it a lot, but I just ended up just gonna say it out bluntly. Do you think all athletes have an ego? And then I extend the question: do you think all performers also have, like, performers being actors, dancers, so on and so forth? Do you think that all of that, lot have an ego? And for the athletes, how often does that ego get genuinely checked, as they're coming up, especially through the minors and such? And maybe again, just as another, is it ever a thing where it could be a positive, or is it in more cases a negative?
So I think you have to have a healthy ego in competitive fields because ultimately, like without that, you're probably going to lack a little bit of the drive, and also you have to you have to really believe in yourself on a fundamental level because nobody else really is going to. But it's a little bit of a trap, right? Because failure is the big spur. Well, it's the big catalyst for growth, and it's unfortunate that it's that way. But in reality, like, yeah, you are going to get your ego checked from time to time. I'm a first round pick, and now I'm struggling in the minor leagues. That's embarrassing in a lot of ways. Their ego takes a hit, but at the same time, it kind of accelerates that process of kind of getting over yourself and understanding what this game is really about and what everything is really about, which is competing with yourself, getting one step better every day, and just seeing how far you can take it instead of constantly comparing yourself to everybody else and worrying about outside validation, which is kind of where everybody starts from. So for me, like getting knocked down was important. It was important. Now, the ego part never really left. Like inside, I always had a narrative of who I was and who I wanted to be. But when the hard times come, you have to kind of lean on your inner strength a lot and look within and figure out, what the best course of action is. So I don't know if that answered your question fully,
Oh, it
but
definitely did. It
at the end of the
definitely.
day, like it's all part of it.
And so yeah. Okay. Um. All right. So sticking to the media subject and whatnot. Uh. All right. So what mental differences? I'm gonna try to read. I'm gonna make sure I get this. What mental differences for a player can there be felt when playing for a team with less media attention, like maybe say the Rockies, versus teams with more eyes on them, like the Sox or the Yankees? So just as an extension, so for an athlete, how more taxing is it, if at all? Because is it easier to wake up the next day after you maybe blew it in Colorado versus in a New York or a Boston and seeing your picture on the news or the post or whatnot? And again, or also is it just not a factor at all, for the most part?
I think in my career it turned out to be sort of similar in the end, but a lot of it is because I built in protections for myself against the noise, the outside noise. Like by the time I got to the Yankees, I had been through the big leagues a few times. I had gotten mean DMs and fans yelling stuff at me, and I'd been embarrassed out there on the mound before, and I had blown the games, and I had experienced a lot of failure, so I understood how to insulate myself from that. Plus, growing up in New York, I knew that it was going to be a thing, so I did a really good job of keeping my circle tight and understanding that, yeah, these games feel more significant because there's more eyeballs on me. But at the end of the day, like I can't be intimidated by that. I can't let that creep into my process. But I will tell you that that's absolutely real for a lot of players. I mean, there's no doubt about it. You feel the pressure playing in a big market. You feel the desire of the fan base. And a lot of people don't do a good job of keeping themselves insulated from it. And it can really snowball on guys. So I took
Mm,
steps to avoid that, but it didn't make the failure any less painful. I mean, getting booed off the field at Yankee Stadium, 2019 playoffs, that was a big moment for me in my career because it's not the way that I envisioned it going in my head. But at the same time, it also kind of allowed me to say, okay, I'm not dead after my worst nightmare happens. I can move
it's
forward from
positive.
this still and still be myself. So there's good and bad in kind of everything. And really, it's just human experience.
That's a one thing I do appreciate from your show. Now I have to mention the show because I did with an intro. Baseball and Coffee. It'll be in the links, guys. Make sure you check it out. But one thing I appreciate is your candidness and whatnot with you know to again, it's not a lot of people uh that have played anything or would have the guts to admit what you just did in like in that candid manner and such. So that is a I do appreciate again that was a nice answer.
Yes, sir.
Um, all right, we can move on. So I'll stick to one more mental one before we can go on to some more little fun ones in baseball and whatnot. If you could time travel and give your 2006 self some advice, what would it be? And if you'd like a less fantasy angle for the question, what is some advice you give a younger player in baseball coming up today?
So I think a couple things. Number one, stay true to myself, be a better filter of the information that's coming in. Not that these coaches weren't trying to help me, they were, but I needed to do a better job of filtering the information and understanding what I could do and what I couldn't do, what I could use and what was probably not right for me. I think ultimately that's the most important thing as a player. You're going to get tons of advice. You're going to have a lot of people trying to put their stamp on you, help you. And a lot of it's, with good intentions, but it's your job to kind of filter that information out. I was given that advice before I ever entered pro ball, but I wasn't able to execute on that. So believing in myself and filtering the information better and deciding what I was motivated to change or not change would have been step one that I would have changed. And then I would say step two is paying attention to the major leagues. I think when you're in the minor leagues, sometimes you lose sight of what the best in the world really is and what they're really doing. And to me, when you watch the best major leaguers, it's easy to get inspired by them, and it makes going to the field the next day more exciting because you know what the target is. Okay, I have to compete with that. When I were in the minor leagues, I felt like my head was just in the sand, and I became so internally focused on what I was doing mechanically and physically and trying to hit my markers and comparing myself so much to other guys that were around me instead of really looking at the true target, which is the guys who are in the big leagues and are making the big bucks and, pitching in the postseason and doing really what the dream is. So I think if I'm giving advice to a younger player, it's always watch the greats, be inspired by them, and try to take a little something and implement that into your game. I wouldn't say emulate, but see what you can do, what you can learn from the best, because at the end of the day, that's the only baseball that really matters is that highest level and just understanding what you can take from it and what the target is, I think is really important in terms of framing, how you take care of each day at the field moving forward.
And again, thank you, because I think that was some great advice that can also be translated into the other domains and such. So, all right, great one that was. Another one that give me a hold. I'm gonna make sure that I get to specifics because now we're getting into some baseball fun, which was all right. Question. It said 1A and 1B. As a pitcher who played through two significant changes through baseball, 1A, how did you feel about the pitch clock change? Did it rattle your approach, if or not at all? And if you had it your way, would you change it? Would you change the rule back to no pitch clock?
No, I like the pitch clock. Of course, you're skeptical at first because the flow of the game and everything, but it's better product now. And honestly, it doesn't hurt the pitchers that bad. Most of the time, I think it's an advantage for the pitchers because the hitters have a hit clock. They have to address you at like 9 on the clock or whatever it is. So they could end up standing there for 9 seconds, which isn't the most comfortable thing. It hurts pitchers more in long innings, long tough innings, but those are already tough. So I like the pitch clock. I think it's better for the fans, and ultimately for me, like for baseball to succeed as a sport, you have to cater to the fans and what they want. So I think it was a great change. I think Manfred nailed that one big time. The one I didn't like was limiting the pickoff throws. That crushed me.
That one,
But
yeah, I was about to ask that. I was about to, because again, I'm like, I remember, because even to a friend of mine who doesn't watch baseball, I'm explaining it to him, like, yeah, they limited the throws. I'm like, oh, how much was it before? Unlimited. Yeah, like, I think because me. So okay, you would keep.
yeah, I mean, I used to have this strategy. I mean, I was never good at holding runners, but I used to have this strategy of like not really caring about it for like the first 4 months of the season or in circumstances where the stolen base didn't matter. And then if I really needed to bear down, I could pick off 8, 9 times. I could hold the ball until they called timeout. I could really break up the base runner's rhythm, and then they probably wouldn't steal. Like I had some good examples of even holding guys like Ronald Acuna on first base without him going under the old system. But once they moved it to the three pickoffs and the pitch clock tied together, I had no real recourse. I couldn't hold the ball until they called timeout. You can't do a million pickoffs. So you're kind of a sitting duck, like, and I just didn't like that because it exposed my weakness. Do I think it's bad for the game? No, but individually it sucked. And so that's just the reality of it.
All right, definitely had to get your opinion on that. And then, of course, the 1B, how did you feel about the elimination of the DH? Because you played on the Cards and Rockies for the first bit of your career. You were very much so familiar with it. You also played with the Mets, I think maybe before, like the year before they changed the rule. So, yeah, how again, what do you prefer, or what do you think about that change in general? Do you think it's significant enough where it has to be? Because I have, in some conversations, heard people say that it's too extremist, if you get what I mean, where it's like, you know, giving everyone a DH isn't something, again, this is just something that doesn't, everyone isn't like the taste of. And again,
Yeah.
I personally, I'm mixed on it. I like it, but, again, I have to get your opinion on it as a pitcher himself.
Uh, being that I'm from the old days, I kind of liked it with the pitchers hitting in the National League just because it was a different style of game. I like there being two different styles of game, and I like the thinking, the managerial thought processes through the old National League game. Double switches. Do you let the pitcher hit in a big spot when he still has a lot of pitches left on his pitch count? I mean, there were some tough choices to be made. I do think ultimately this is a little more fair. You roll out your 9 guys, everybody has the same rules. Now everybody's playing everybody all the time. There's a lot more interleague going on. So in terms of fairness, this is better. But I do miss the old days a little bit because it was something else to think about. It was some different baseball strategy, and I really like the fact that if you could hit as a pitcher, that was a big advantage for you. But I think it's so far gone now. We're never going to see it again. And at the same time,
I've
it
accepted
is a
that.
lot more fun to watch a great DH hit than a pitcher hit. So I understand both sides of it. But yeah, I guess I'm a little bit on the old school side on this debate a little bit. Yeah.
Shout out to your, was it a right field hit in course once?
Hmm.
Um, all right, so making sure I've cleared off those questions. All right, we can move on to some more little fun ones. I've titled Fanfare. What's your favorite team you've played for and why, if you have one?
So I've loved them all except for the Cardinals. That was my worst experience. Not that I have any hatred for them, but it wasn't the best fit. Um, I'm just gonna say the Rockies because don't get me wrong, like I loved my time with the Yankees. It meant a ton to me. The Red Sox year was a blast. The Mets 3 years was awesome. And I loved those guys so much too. But the Rockies, just because I was there for so long, 7 years, saw the team go from basically a 100 loss team to a postseason team. Grew up with a lot of those guys in pro baseball, the LeMahieus, the Blackmans, guys that I was with, Arenados for 5, 6, 7 years. So that felt like a family. And so for that reason, plus for those reasons, I guess that's why I would pick the Rockies. And on top of that, just the whole life experience during those years, getting married during that time, having our first 2 kids, being in Denver, like that's all fond memories. So for those reasons, I would pick Colorado.
All right, and sticking to, again, the Rocky note then, your top 5 Rocky pitchers of all time. Now, I have to personally say, I won't, say I most likely won't know most of these folks because
Yeah.
but this is, I'm asking for the Rocky fan out there that, she must know.
All right. So Ubaldo Jimenez, uh, Ulysses Chacin, Jorge De La Rosa. I'll give those three as starters. And then the relievers, I'm going to say Steve Reed, who a lot of people don't know. And if I'm not going to pick myself, I would say Brian Fuentes. So those are my top five all time. I know Kyle Freeland is probably coming up on a lot of these records as well because he's been there a really long time. But in my mind, those five stand out.
All right, of course, right, personal. Um, Favorite walk-up song of yours, and does a walk-up song have any significance whatsoever, or is it just another just little fun tack on?
Sure. So I really only had like three or four in my whole career. The one that I stuck with the longest and I would pick was is "Alive" by Kid Cudi, and the reason why I used it is just the lyrics. Like every time the moon shines, I become alive, which is kind of like the job of a late inning reliever. Like the moon's out, it's time for me to come alive and go handle my business. And
It's nice.
it's
It's
got that
nice.
certain vibe to it. And I remember I found the song because I was looking for a new song while I was rehabbing my Tommy John. I remember being in Modesto, California, driving around in my rental car, clicking through my playlist, trying to find the new song. And when that one came on, it just felt right. And the fans have always responded really well to it. Lots of kids throughout the years have told me how much they like that song and blah, blah, blah. So that's the one. The other ones I used in my career was like, No Sleep Till Brooklyn, just being from
Yeah.
Brooklyn, stuff like that. Or a couple of years we would have to switch to like a certain theme walkout song. So we had one on Women's Day with the Mets, and I remember I picked like One Way or Another by Blondie, which is kind of like I'm gonna get you one way or
Mm-hmm.
another, that type of thing. But so I've played around with it a little bit, and I think walkout songs are very special because everybody gets their own choice, and it's the vibe you want to kind of warm up to. But yeah, "Alive" by Kid Cudi would be the answer.
I'll throw in my little personal favorite here. Cody Bellinger this year had "Till I Collapse" for the Yankees, and oh my god, to hear that on arena speakers, that's my favorite song of all time. So, shout out to that song.
So sick.
Shout out to Belly. All right, so on to well, I was excited for this one. Least favorite place to play, not named Coors Field.
Least favorite place?
Least favorite place, not named
Oh,
Coors.
I love Coors, but least favorite place, I would say I had horrible numbers in Cleveland. Horrible numbers in Cleveland. It's not like I dislike playing there, but I got rocked there. Whereas I hated playing in Cincinnati, but I did well there. So figure that one out.
I, you know, there's a note I left out. I'm glad I remembered it here. I was going to say, sometimes spite makes people perform better. So that might have been that. And then there's the positive side to that question. Where was your favorite place to play?
Fenway, probably. Fenway or Wrigley. Uh, Yankee Stadium, I have great numbers too. Like obviously, I love Yankee Stadium, but my issue is I grew up at the old Yankee Stadium, so that one was more special to me than the new one.
That makes sense.
So if I got to pitch on that, that'd probably be my answer. But Fenway, Wrigley, Dodger Stadium, like the old ones were always important to me.
All right, and making sure I have all of them. And this is a funny one to end it off on. Favorite pregame meal, if any.
Yeah, so I would always eat an hour and a half before game time. Typically some sort of protein like chicken or steak or what have you, pulled pork, who knows, fish, something with like some rice and some vegetables. That was kind of what I would eat every time. If it was the morning, it was more like eggs, eggs with a protein as well, some fruit or something like that. And then during the game, I would snack. I would bring two bananas and an almond butter packet to the bullpen with me, as well as my coffee, so I could just snack throughout the game. I was always terrified that I was going to lose energy. A lot of people can't eat before they perform. I'm kind of the opposite. I like feel
Yeah,
like
I
I
want to
have,
like, yeah, not saying I
yeah,
want to like, yeah, coffee in the bullpen. Like, okay, nice.
I feel like I have to eat. I have to make sure I'm not hungry and my energy level's there and my alertness is there. So that's where the coffee all ties in as well. So yeah, that's kind of the answer. I don't know. I think I ate more than other guys though, for sure.
All right. And I remembered this one before we wrap up. And I don't expect you to have an answer. This is a good respect, but I know this isn't everyone's ballpark. If you have one, top three favorite wrestlers. And if you don't have one,
Ooh.
you could just do one.
I'm from the old school, so I don't watch much WWE these days. But growing up, I mean, look, I think The Rock was the best on the mic. So just for that, he was there, stone cold, iconic, of course. And then I'll give you like a one just that I thought was fun, like Rey Mysterio, like back in the day, super athletic, different
Yeah,
style. So those are my answers.
that's gonna make a lot of people happy. All right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, this has been Actionz Entertainment with Adam Ottavino for the first ever ASN interview. Mr. Ottavino, again, I appreciate you very much. This was awesome. And yeah, good luck on the throwing and such later today. So, everyone, that's a wrap for us. Tune in to Baseball and Coffee or Baseball After Dark every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. So, that's it from me, from us, and from Actionz.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
Peace. Damn, thank you.
Smoke cheaper, cheaper, smoke cheaper, cheaper. You're so hot that I can kiss the sky. Brick City to the crooked letter I. Let's get.